Hi Girl Scouts, my name's Molly. I'm the Program Director at Girl Scouts of Virginia's Skyline Council in Roanoke, Virginia. And today we're going to be covering the Junior Digital Photographer Badge, steps number 1 through 3. So I hope you're excited. I'm really excited. First I'm going to go over all 5 steps for you and then we're going to dive right in. All right, so step number 1 is learn about digital cameras from an expert. Number 2 is to take tons of photographs. Number 3 is to edit 3 photos. Number 4 is to make a digital photo project. And number 5 is to share your photos. And when you've earned this badge, you'll know how to use a digital camera to create one-of-a-kind photos. So I'm really excited about this. A fun fact about me is I have been a big fan of photography since I was a kid, probably a little older than you guys are now. But I started taking pictures. This is actually my first camera that my parents got me when I was in high school. And it's a film camera, as you'll see, so we're not going to learn on this today, but I wanted to show you, and we can go over a few things. But I also have a digital camera, so hopefully you've got one of these or a point and shoot or even just a phone camera to work with today. We're going to go over the basics before we get started. So go ahead and grab your camera and we'll go over some things. So I'm also going to encourage you to maybe take a tutorial online. I'll post some ideas for you along with this video, but we'll go over the basics of the different modes and the ways of shooting that are pretty common among all cameras. The most important thing is going to be to figure out what camera you have and learn the very specifics to that camera. Most different cameras you can find guides online, things like that. So you should be able to figure out specifically, and we'll go over a lot of the pretty standard stuff. Before you watch a video online or anything like that, though, make sure you sign your Girl Scout Internet Safety Pledge, okay? You want to do that first. So we're going to get started and talk about the different camera modes. All right, so we're going to talk first about the different camera modes you can use while you're taking your digital photographs. And I've got a handy little cheat sheet here that kind of goes over, hopefully you can see, some of the different icons with a little more information about what each one means. So on your camera, so I know on my film camera, I've got a handy dial here on the top that's got all the different pictures. And you can rotate that to get which one you want. You also may have to go into your camera, into the settings to find the different modes. Hopefully you can see this. So you may have to look and figure out again on your particular camera where these are. And so these are big digital SLRs is what these cameras are. But you might have a smaller point and shoot camera or even a phone camera. And that's fine. A lot of these modes are common across all different types of your cameras. So just try to figure out how you can use them and where you can find those settings. So the first one, which is going to be the most basic, usually it's green, is this camera icon right there. It's automatic, which is going to be it's going to be your go-to if you don't know what kind of setting you need. So otherwise, if you know what you're looking for, you're going to go to that. But automatic just means the camera is going to be in full control and hopefully it's going to make the best decisions. All right, so the next one, usually it's a little icon of a person, which is pretty easy to remember what it's for. It's for portrait mode. So usually if you're taking a picture of just a person, not so much a big, huge landscape, but just a picture of the person, and that person is going to be your focus. That's what you're going to use that for, is the portrait mode. It makes really, really lovely portraits. The next one in here is going to have its landscape. And so this is, the icon here is like mountains with maybe a person in it. But again, the mountains and the landscape itself is the focus. And so that's the mode you want to use if you have, like maybe you're at the beach and you want a really big picture of the beach, or you're at the lake or the mountains and you want a big picture of the lake, whether or not there's people in there too. That's the mode you're going to want to use for something like that. All right, the next one we've got, it's a little flower on here, and that's what's called macro mode. And macro is essentially when you're taking pictures of small things or details. So obviously flowers, like tiny objects, things like that, bugs maybe, especially outdoors. That's a really good mode to use for stuff like that. It makes really, really cool pictures of small things. Next up, you can see it's the moon and a star. That's night mode. Obviously, is going to be better for when there's not a lot of light out, nighttime especially. Then we've got this icon is a guy running, so that's sports mode. That one also speaks for itself a little bit. This is a really important one to remember when you're taking a picture, not just of sports specifically, but anytime you take a picture of something moving faster than normal. So just even running around, or maybe like a road with fast cars, if you want to make them stop in the picture as opposed to be blurry, that's the mode that you want to use for that sort of thing. It's especially useful in bright conditions as opposed to in the dark. So again, dark, you're going to want maybe night mode. Sport mode is good when there's a lot of light out. And then the last one is movie. So we're not going to talk much about that, but that's if your camera has the ability to take videos, that's where that's going to be. It's that kind of like old school movie camera icon, okay? So most of those, again, you can find on lots of different cameras. You might have more. I was going to say my film camera has a lot of the similar ones, but it doesn't have all of those modes, whereas my digital SLR has a lot of really cool modes. So let's just go through some of these. So we're going to start. It has that icon of a person for portrait mode, landscape. It's got a child mode, so that's a fun one. So if you're taking pictures of like a little baby, sports mode, again, macro for close-ups, night portraits, that's even more specific. So it's a time you're taking a portrait, but it's at night. Night landscapes, that's a little different. It's like when you want the lights of a city maybe. Party or indoor. Beach or snow, that's a really good one because it's really, really bright usually. It's like bright light. Sunset, that's a fun one. Your camera might have that. Dusk or dawn, that's similar to sunset. Pet portrait, we'll talk more about that later. Candlelight, blossom, autumn colors, food. So again, you may or may not have more or less of these different modes, but these are the really common ones and good ones to remember. And so next, our step 2, if you remember, is to take tons of photographs. And today we're going to learn how to take tons of photographs by photographing a pet. So in just a minute, I'm going to get my dog and we're going to take a bunch of pictures of him. His name's Cooper, and we're going to go over some tips as well, because with pets especially, you have to kind of be patient because they're a little unpredictable, right? If you have a pet, you know that. They move around a lot, especially my dog Cooper. He is running, he's jumping, he's pretty fast. So I want you to think about what mode you might want to use for something like that. Obviously, this camera has a pet portrait mode, but not all cameras do. So if I just had all of these, I want you to think about what mode I should use to take pictures of Cooper. All right, so we're going to talk about that in a minute, and I'll let you know what I'm using, but I want you to think about it first and come up with an answer. All right. Another thing you want to think about when taking pictures of pets is to make every photo different, right? So your pet might be moving around a lot, but if they're not, think about different ways you can get a different perspective in every photo. Maybe some of them are from far away and you can see a lot of the grass around him, or maybe you get really, really close and all you can see is his snout. Think about different ways you can get lots of different pictures of your pet, and then the fun part is to take the pictures themselves, right? So we're going to do that for sure. So I'm going to get him out here and we're going to take some pictures of him, okay? All right, we're back. This is my dog Cooper, and he's very excited, mostly because I have a lot of treats for him while I take his picture today. So a couple things to remember, again, when you're taking pictures of a pet. Cooper moves around a lot. Come here, bud. And he's really fast, right? So you want to make sure that you're in the right mode for that. So again, if you don't have that pet portrait mode, a good mode you could use is sports, which most cameras have. So I put my camera in sport mode, and we're about to get started. So let's get Cooper back. Come here, bud. All right. So like I said, you want to get lots of different types of pictures. So here's a good one, him sitting. He's a really good sitter. And we're going to make him stay and be polite. Okay, sit. And you always want to make sure, if you are using treats, don't tease your pet, okay? You want to make sure you give them the treats that they've earned, okay? So next I'm going to have him come over here. Come here, bud. Stay, stay, stay. Stay. Oh. I want to have a picture of him running towards me, so I'm going to try to make him stay for a second before he comes. Stay. Stay, 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 stay. Okay, come. Good boy. Good boy. All right. And next, I know he likes sticks. He's not a big fan of toys, but he likes sticks. So I'm going to see if I can get him to jump. Cooper, come. Come here. Come here. Oh, good boy. Cooper, come here. Come here, bud. He knows where I hid some of the treats. Come here. Cooper, come here. No. Those are for later. Come here. Cooper, you want one? Cooper, come. Come here. All right. This is where a buddy would be helpful. I just have myself, so I'm going to try it one more time. Cooper, up. Cooper. Stay. Up. Maybe I'll try a treat because he doesn't seem as interested in the stick right now. Cooper, come. Come here. Oh, good job. Up. Oh, what a good jumper. So I hope I got a picture of that. He's a little crazy right now, but we're going to keep trying. Cooper, sit. Stay. 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 Cooper, up. Oh, I got a good one. All right, and one last one. I'm going to get a treat from over here. I'm going to see if I can get a picture of him laying down and calm. It's a lot harder than him excited. Come here, bud. Sit. Lay down. Stay. Stay. Cooper, stay. Up. No, come here. Lay down. Stay. Stay. Like I said, you can get different angles. Now I'm going to try to get real close. Stay. Stay. Cooper. Good boy. Good dog. All right, so when you're taking photos of your pet, if you have a pet, try to do a few things so you can get a lot of different angles. And say, thank you, Cooper. Chick. Good boy. Good job. All right, Girl Scouts, I hope you are ready for step 3, and I hope you had fun with step 2, taking lots of photos. I know Cooper and I had a lot of fun, so I hope you did too. We're gonna get ready and we're gonna do step 3, which is editing 3 photos. So I have already loaded up my photos onto my computer. So you're gonna need to do that next as well. If you need help, just talk to an adult or someone who can help you get those photos either on your computer or maybe a tablet or a phone, something that will help you edit them. And I'm going to show you a few tips to do some simple edits on them. So first things first, I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to see all the photos I took of Cooper. So I took a bunch of photos, and the next step is one of my favorite parts. It's going through and looking at all the photos. So here is one of cute little Cooper. He's adorable. We're going to flip through. So even now you can see a variety of photos. So I have one close up to start. The next one is further back. This one's jumping. It's a little blurry. So even though I was in sport mode, it is still a little blurry. That's okay. And then this next one, the colors are a lot different in this one. So that can happen as well. I can show you some things to help you edit that if you want. And then this one. And if you take a lot of photos, sometimes you'll have ones that aren't that different. That's okay. You pick which one is your favorite. So these two aren't all that different. He's just looking in different directions. But I really like this one where he's licking his nose because I think it's cute. And then this one further back is an example of kind of that landscape portrait, right? Because you have a lot of the scene and it's not just focused on Cooper. And then this one, so it is also sport mode. He was running towards me, and you can tell it is in pretty good focus. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And yeah, it's still in good focus, and that's what you want, right? That's why we use those different modes to get the effects that we want. Another one of him jumping, a little funnier, and even closer. All right, and then a different one, slightly different perspective. This one's really bright, so it's got a lot of white space. and that's what you'd call overexposed. So I can show you how to edit that to change the lighting and maybe bring it down a little bit so it's not quite as overwhelmingly bright. And another one with a stick, also pretty bright. Oh, and this one with a stick. And I think that's our last one. So this can also show you how different perspective will play in the photos. So these were taken just seconds apart, but in this one I was standing up and looking down at Cooper, right? And in this other one, I was down on the ground looking straight at him. And so it's not that different of a photo. He's not doing that much differently, but I really like this one better because it's really, really cool and you got a cool perspective. You're really in your face. So I might edit that one. And then maybe one of these yellowy ones so you can see the color transformation. And then I might edit this one to get it a little, to crop it. So next we're going to talk about editing softwares. I'm going to show you first. I have in my computer, and most computers have just basic editing capabilities. So we're going to go over that. You don't need any fancy, super cool, crazy software to do big edits. Most, computers, probably tablets and phones have very, basic editing capabilities, which is great. If you want to get more advanced and learn more, there's lots of different things available online. Obviously, if you're going to download any software or anything like that, you always want to check with an adult first and make sure that that's a good idea before just going for it. So if you're just using what's built onto that device, you're fine. You should be okay. This is just built in, so I'm going to go ahead and open the editing software, and I'm going to crop this one because I really like it, but with such a long line here, I want to make it straight up and down as opposed to horizontal like it is. So that's changing the mode, or changing the aspect and making it portrait. So that is an option. It just kind of opens up and just automatically does it a little bit. But if that's not quite enough, which I'd like it a little more, I can drag these around and play with it so Cooper's even more centered and fills that frame, right? So I really like that. It's like he's running right at me and it's really, really cool. So I like that a lot. If you want to crop, make sure you just play around, get what you want. You even have the ability with this straightening tool to kind of adjust which way it leans, how straight it is. So I can turn it if I want. I can do that. I don't really want to do that, but it's nice to know if I did. Oh, and that took me all the way back. So I'm just going to do my portrait again and crop it in nice and close right there. All right, and that's, I think, all I want to do for this photo. So I'm going to save a copy. I can just save on top of the original, but for these purposes, I want to show you the changes. So I'm just going to save it, rename it, and then we're going to take a look at the differences. So that's our first photo edit. We cropped it, and let's see if it'll show me the original and then the crop down smaller. I really like that. It's a nice, it doesn't have the distraction of the background. It's just a really close photo of Cooper running. So that one I really like. So there's our first edit. Let's see, our second edit, I think we're gonna do this one. I really like it, but it's a little bright. It's a little, what I would call overexposed. So we're gonna play with the lighting there. All right, so we're not cropping this time. We're gonna go to adjustments though with the sun and go to the light option, right? Because that's what I wanna play around with. So it's really, really bright. When I select light, I have a few options to work with. I'm gonna start with exposure. That's the one that's gonna affect how much light and how bright your photo is, how exposed it is, right? Overexposed or underexposed. And so overexposed means it's really, really bright like this. So I'm gonna just bring it down a little bit. And so I can go real dark, I can go real light. Woo, that one's crazy. And I'm just gonna bring it somewhere in between, a little darker than it started. And I really like that. I think that's a lot better than it started out as. But as you'll notice, it's a little bit, you know, bland. It's not as, doesn't have as much contrast. So I'm also gonna adjust that so I can make it a lot of contrast or no contrast. I wanna make it a little more contrast than it started with, so I'm just gonna bring that up a little bit. And then highlights and shadows are two things in a photograph you can mess with. The highlights are going to be the parts like the really, really bright, like part of the stick right here, the background, how it's really, really bright. And then the shadows are going to be the darkest parts. So like Cooper's fur, his dark fur. And so you can change whether those are really bright or really dark. So the highlights, if I make them really bright, it's going to wash out a lot of that detail. If I make them really dark, it's going to kind of take away that contrast I worked with, right? So I might make them a little bit darker, just so they're not overwhelming. I don't want to adjust them too much, but then the shadows, I think I'm going to bring up a little bit so I have a little more detail right in his fur, and I can see a little bit more. And then I think I'm going to just make the contrast a little bit more after that. And I really, really like how that turned out, right? So I'm going to save a copy of this. I'm going to leave it there. And then we're going to take a look at the difference. So we've got our second edit. Now we've cropped one. We've adjusted the lighting and the tones on that one. So here we go. This is our edit, and that's our original, right? So much difference. You can see the green grass even more. I really like that. So I'm happy with that. All right, and then our last one, I think I like, let's look at this one. I'm a big fan of that photo. It's super cute with him licking his nose, but it's very, very yellowy. So I'm going to edit the colors on this one. So again, I'm going to go to the adjust mode right here, and then I'm going to hit color because that's where I want to work. And so you have two options, tint and warmth. And since my problem right here is going to be how yellow it is and how warm the color is, that's where I'm going to work. I'm going to work with the warmth. So that basically, you have the option between yellows and blues, or the kind of overall way that this tool works is just the simplified understanding. So it's pretty warm to start, and so I want to bring that down. I don't want it super blue, obviously, because that looks strange too, but I want it a little less blue than it started, or a little less yellow than it started. So that looks really nice. I really like that. Tint is going to be more of your greens and reds that you're working with. And so I kind of like how it started. I don't really want to mess with the greens and reds too much, maybe a little more to the green side for the grass. And I like that. That looks nice. And so now that I've done that, I might go and adjust the light just a little bit too. I'm going to maybe make it a little brighter, or that was contrast. Maybe make it a little brighter there, and bring the shadows up again, because Cooper's a dark, he's got dark fur, so sometimes he just kind of blurs together. But that adds a little more detail in his fur. And then I'm going to bring the contrast up. And I really like that. I think that looks really nice. So I do want to lower the saturation of the color, and I think that happens just right here. If I mess with this bar just under color, I can either take away all of the saturation or add a lot of it. And it was a little much saturation for me to start, so I'm just going to bring it down a tiny bit. And I really like that. I think that's a really nice photo. So I'm going to save a copy of that. And that's 3 quick, easy edits. I adjusted the crop on one, the lighting on another, and then the color tones on a third one. And you can do as much or as many edits as you want. There's a lot to work with. Again, your computer or laptop or tablet will probably have just some basic editing. So play around and see what you like working with. So we're going to look at this again. So this is the first photo. It's very yellowy. And then our edit is just really, really pretty. So I'm a big fan of that. I hope Cooper likes it, and I hope you had fun. I'm going to end and show you a little trick from Cooper and say goodbye, and I hope you had a great day. So thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy. Good boy. Good job, buddy.